What is up, guys? Welcome to Just Offside, the weekly MLS show where we take your comments and talk about them. My name's Allan.
My name's Louie.
And let's jump right into it. All right, guys, so this week we're going to be starting off with a little bit of a long comment. We're just going to read a little bit of it, summarize. And it comes from Emil Zakarian. He said, "Y'all are forgetting that NYFC are in a horrific form at the moment. Sure, David V is scary, and that tiny field is always a nightmare to play on, but New York City have had major finishing issues for quite a while now." So we asked a hypothetical question of if DC United made it to the playoffs, who they would rather play, New York City FC or Columbus Crew, and we both said they probably want to play Columbus just because New York City FC has a scary lineup. But Emil is very correct in saying that they're pretty much on a really, really bad run of form right now. They're not as scary as their roster might point to. Pretty valid argument that he made.
Yeah, whereas Columbus is also kind of doing pretty well. They've had some good results. Zardes looks pretty well. But yeah, that was a really good point. Thank you, Emil. Ben Riggum says, "As a Sounders fan, I see us winning most of, if not all of our games. Our next games include Philadelphia," and he listed a bunch of other teams. I'm going to cut this one short because 2 days after we released the last episode, Seattle lost. So that win streak was 100% over right after that. So Ben Riggum, we love your optimism, and I actually shared your optimism. Both of us were wrong. I apologize.
Next comment comes from The Goat. Love that username. He goes, "You guys think an MLS team could do well in the CONCACAF Champions League? I think ATL could turn some heads." Absolutely, man. I mean, Atlanta United, one of the most exciting teams in the MLS right now, really energetic. If they can keep their current squad I think that they would for sure put up a fight in the CONCACAF Champions League.
I would love to see them be in a similar position to what Toronto found themselves this year. Got to the CONCACAF Champions League final, but unfortunately couldn't pull out a win. In my personal opinion, I think that this year's version of Toronto is so much worse than this year's version of Atlanta. So if Atlanta can keep their same crew together for next year for one last run and be the first MLS team to win the CONCACAF Champions League, that would be amazing for the MLS. Because then all of a sudden you have Atlanta United going to play in the FIFA Club World Cup, which would just put MLS kind of a little bit on the map at least. So we'll see if that happens. I don't think it'll happen because I think this Atlanta squad is probably going to get broken up very, very soon. But hopefully they can keep it together. Next comment comes from Omar Takori. And this is in response to the question about the Red Bull. We asked what New York Red Bull should be focusing on, the Supporters Shield or the playoffs. And Omar Takori says, "Supporters Shield is great and all, but I want a star on the jersey, damn it." And I'm with him, man. I mean, you always want your club to get that star, get that cup, because you want that win. I personally find the Supporters Shield almost a little silly in a sense to focus on, but we asked it because a lot of clubs do want to focus on it because it's the best regular season team.
Yeah, for me, especially in a league that focuses on a kind of playoff style with the championship, you always want to win the cup, and although having a good regular season means something for just longevity of your club, at the end of the day, if it doesn't mean you're winning a trophy, I don't think it's all that worthy.
Right.
So next comment comes from Ryan Walker. He says, "Montreal is on the rise. Defense has gotten better and better throughout the season, and if America can keep performing, we will be a threat in the playoffs." So this is just in response to us asking if Montreal, given their kind of on and off season, if they can put a run of form in the playoffs. That's a good That's some good analysis there from Ryan, for sure. I mean, again, they're one of those teams, like, when they get hot, they really play some really attractive football. They're attacking. They're exciting to watch. It's just been that consistency issue.
Sebastian Gomez says, "It means a generator." We asked what the hell was a dynamo. He told us it was a generator. Thank you for responding. We really appreciate that. I don't think it changes my stance on the Dynamo being a shit club and a shit franchise. So, yeah.
Probably makes it worse.
Almost. Like, we're the generators.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, they can't generate any fans. So, okay.
And final comment from Brad Jr. says, "Mickey is great, but he will be in Europe before long." 100% agree with you, Brad. I think that it's just a matter of time now, especially with the phenomenal season he's put out this year already. I think he'll probably be attracting some big-name European teams, and unfortunately, we're going to see him leave the MLS.
And moving along to this week's soccer action, we're going to start off with something a little bit different. This past weekend, it was the NWSL Championship game, and what a game it was. In front of a sellout crowd at Providence Park in Portland, 21,000 plus people broke a record for the most people ever attending a championship game for women's soccer in the United States, and it was phenomenal to see. That place was buzzing. People were coming out in waves to support their clubs, and unfortunately, a majority of those supporters were probably there to support the Thorns, and that did not go well at all.
No, yeah, Portland lost 3-0 to the North Carolina Courage. Courage, I mean, for anyone that follows the NWSL, has had an amazing season. Really kind of the favorites, although Portland is a really good team, the favorites in this game. And, I mean, their North Carolina's kind of quality really showed in this game.
Right. North Carolina Courage's season has been so historic that they first of all, they won both the Supporters Shield and the NWSL Cup. They won the final with the largest margin of victory of any of the other NWSL champions.
You're forgetting to mention they also won the ICC Cup this year as well.
They did win the ICC Cup for the women's, as well as the most goals scored and the least amount of goals conceded in the whole season. So this is just like the cherry on top for them, because this was a phenomenal season all around from North Carolina Courage. Not to mention, they absolutely dominated in-field for this game. And while Portland has the NWSL MVP in Lindsey Horan, so congrats to Lindsey Horan for getting the MVP, it wasn't enough. She tried as much as she could in the game to give them that win, but North Carolina Courage just came out balling. That first half, I'm pretty sure Portland only had one chance, 2 chances on goal, and the entire rest of the half was North Carolina just pouncing on them.
Yeah, I mean, the Courage, honestly, if you watch the game or even watch the highlights, you'll notice that it's just the Courage. They probably should have had 6+ goals. I mean, they had an abundance of chances. They honestly were kind of sloppy in their finishing, because in that first half, they could have had easily 6 goals on the Thorns.
Oh, yeah, and they were just out, just everywhere in the field, they were outclassing the Portland Thorns. So it was really interesting to see, because this is actually a replay of last year's final where Portland actually won.
Yep.
So it's almost like, on top of all of this amazing stuff that the North Carolina Courage did, it was almost like a game of revenge. Yeah. It was like, cool, you guys beat us last year, but we're going to beat you this year in your home stadium when we break all of these records. Yeah, cool, you get to keep your MVP, that's awesome, but we're going to just beat you at home and be better than you. So, shout out to the North Carolina Courage, and you guys were hella awesome.
They really put a thorn in the Portland Thorns' plans.
So we've seen the NWSL grow in stature over the last couple of years, and they've been a little bit more conservative with their growth. They haven't really been adding that many teams. They actually lost the team this past year with the Boston Breakers, and it's unfortunate to see that happen, because you actually worked a little bit for the Breakers, so it was kind of sad to see them not be around anymore. A club that had been a staple in the women's soccer scene throughout the past few years. So where does the NWSL go from here? Do they add another team? What is next for the NWSL? Because usually the women's leagues in this country have not been the most stable, but it seems like the NWSL has the right product. Let us know in the comments below.
All right, guys, so moving on, we're going to be covering the game between the New York Red Bulls and Toronto City FC, a game that Toronto ended up losing 2-0, a pretty highly contested game. I mean, the scoreline 2-0 doesn't really justify how tight it was and how kind of poorly New York Red Bull played overall.
Yeah, it was very interesting, because New York Red Bull just didn't seem like they were clicking. They didn't look that great, and the game was very well, it was really good contested. The first goal was just messy that New York scored. It was just unfortunate that it happened. It just kind of deflected off of three, 4 different people, and the goalkeeper couldn't keep it out. So it was a very messy goal to give up, and Toronto had the chances to get back in the game, and even late into the game, it was 1-0. Toronto were probing, they were pressing, and then comes the second goal. That defender for Toronto, Zabaleta, I believe his name is, man, he just it was like he tripped over himself or collapsed, and it gave Derek Etienne Jr. a gift of a goal, because there was no one there to defend it. The ball came in the air, and this dude just fell. He just collapsed, and it put Derek Etienne Jr. on goal, and he buried that shot.
Yeah, I mean, big credit to Derek Etienne Jr. Came in as a sub. He actually made the play for the first goal, scored the second goal, even though it was kind of a gift. You still want to see the guy finish that. Was a game changer.
Definitely, for sure.
And Etienne came on for Royer, Royer is a very important player for Red Bulls, been bagging a lot of goals, but now 2 games on the bounce where he's come off, hasn't really had the impact that Red Bulls fans would have wanted.
Yeah, but good on Derek Etienne Jr. I think he hadn't scored in a very long time this season. He had gone a pretty long dry spell, so good on him for coming in and making an impact off the bench. Moving along to the other New York club, or for some of you, the only New York club. New York City ties Montreal 1-1. So New York City has actually been, like we said earlier about in the comment section, New York City has had the awful run of form, and this game kind of continued it. They dropped some points to a team that they might have, should have probably beat. More drop points. And Montreal actually looked pretty good. That goal that they scored, the build-up play was phenomenal. Piatti was involved, and then Azira actually got a little bit of luck from the deflection that put it on goal, but the whole move that generated that goal was really, really good. So Montreal looked all right. It was a good goal, and New York just looked in my opinion. Their goal was all right. I mean, they don't fill me with confidence right now, and they've just been dropping points left and right.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if I were a New York City fan right now, I'd be a little worried with the run. I mean, yes, and this is something that we talked about obviously in the last episode. Yes, the roster's there, but just not clicking for some reason. And I honestly don't know what the issue is, but they're just kind of they're lacking that form right now, and coming into the playoffs, end of the season, that's not necessarily the best for New York City.
So let us know, guys, how worried are you about New York City FC's current run of form? Would you rather it be happening now before the playoffs, and that way maybe they can get over this hump into the playoffs, or do you think this is going to impact them very negatively going into the playoffs? Moving along to the last Canadian club in the MLS, the Vancouver Whitecaps played FC Dallas but lost 2-1. With this win, FC Dallas goes back top of the Western Conference, and Vancouver continues to not win. But for Vancouver, that Alphonso Davies-Kai Kamara connection worked out beautifully once again. Alphonso Davies tearing it up on the wing, sending it in, Kai Kamara burying it.
Yeah, Vancouver right now sitting in 8th place in the West. They have the talent, which is strange, but they just, again, one of those MLS teams that the players don't seem to be gelling. Other than the Davies-Kamara connection, guys kind of aren't picking up the slack.
Yeah, and FC Dallas, they don't really fill me with much, I don't believe in them as a number 1 seed. They're there. They've been playing okay, but I don't see them being the Western Conference champion. I think that other teams in the West have a much better chance of doing it than they do. I think Seattle has been on a really good run of form, minus these 2 games from this past week, but they've looked really good. And in Sporting KC's been really, really good. But I don't believe in FC Dallas.
Yeah, FC Dallas is one of those kind of very underwhelming first seeds. I mean, we don't ever talk about them that much. I feel like mainstream media doesn't cover them that much. And I don't know if that's just because of a lack of exciting play, or if it's just FC Dallas not being a big enough market.
Right, which is interesting, but let us know, guys. Are we being too harsh? Do you think does FC Dallas convince you of being a rightful number 1 seed in the West, or are we being a little bit too offside? As for Vancouver, where do you guys go next year? If Alphonso Davies leaves, he's been providing a lot of that creative spark. What happens next year? You guys seem like you have some pieces in place, but you can't get it together. So, again, what happens next year?
And now, guys, let's talk about Atlanta United versus Real Salt Lake, a game that Atlanta United win 2-0. A game with some pretty kind of spectacular goals. Gressel with a shot that, man, really sticks in my mind.
That was a beautiful goal. Gressel picked that out and just, man, it was a long cross from Almiron, who worked down that wing beautifully. And at first I thought, oh man, that cross was way overhit. And then the camera pans and there's Julian Gressel, who picks it out and just buries it into the back of the net. And I was like, all right, Almiron, you have a better vision than I do. Clearly, you're one of the best players in the MLS. I'm sitting doing a YouTube show. That's perfectly fine.
There's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Also, shout out to Villalba, who that guy, I swear, man, watching that game, he had so many chances, and almost a couple that were just sitters that he missed. And then he ends up scoring a goal that hits off the post, hits off the goalkeeper, and goes in. I was like, man, the heavens, I think today the heavens are like, we're going to get you a goal.
The power of persistence is what it should be called, because despite RSL being the team that had been on the scoring tear up until about last week, scoring 12 goals in 2 games, I thought that Atlanta were going to come out like 7-0 winners of this game, especially because of the amount of chances Villalba missed. There were some easy chances that Villalba just wasn't hitting, wasn't burying, wasn't doing enough to put in the back of the net. But that goal, man, that you said, it was the power of persistence. And like Josef Martinez's little head fake to get the ball over him for a perfect shot for Villalba, it was great. And so it was good to see. Don't give up.
Yeah, I mean, the chemistry there between that front line for Atlanta, it isn't just between Martinez and Almiron, something that we talked about last episode. It's almost like any guy they stick in there, they really do have a connection that is more than just on the field. They're friends, right? And so they really understand each other pretty well.
And they trust each other, and they know, like, all right, this guy's going to do this. I'm going to be here. It'll be great. So, man, shout out to Atlanta. I thought that this game was going to be a rout. Ended up just being a 2-0 win, which is good to see because it kept adding points to their Supporters Shield charge. And it was interesting because it follows a game where they were actually losing midweek against San Jose 3-1 before they were able to come back and win 4-3. So, a really good week for Atlanta. It showed that, like, people talk about, like, that championship mentality almost of, like, coming from behind wins and, like, doing the dirty work to get that win. So, whereas this game was very easy, midweek game, not so much. Real Salt Lake, what happened? Where have the goals gone? Why have they dried up? What's different now than it was 2 weeks ago? Let us know below. Moving along to the next game, the Columbus Crew versus the Colorado Rapids. First comment, that Columbus Crew Stadium continues to be empty. All you saw were the yellow benches, essentially, in the stands. Yeah, sure, some fans there, but it's sad when a club is one of the original clubs in the MLS who can't really fill out their stadium. Sad to see.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those talking points, the Columbus Crew, and unfortunately it seems like it's not something that's getting resolved quickly, and I think the fans there are struggling with a lot of stuff that I don't think the attendance numbers are just because people aren't interested. I think there's obviously a lot more going on there. There's a lot more there than meets the eye. I'd love to see them stay in. I mean, they're one of those clubs that it's hard to hate. I think just being an original member of the MLS, something that you love about them, their crest. I really do like their crest as well. I think that in the MLS, they're one of the nicer looking crests, which may not mean anything, but I do wish that they would kind of stay. Yeah,
luckily for them, they fared a little bit better on the field than they have been off the field, coming out 2-1 victors over the Rapids. Zardes, man, that goal was a really well-worked team goal, put him on frame, and he just does what he does best and buried it.
Yeah, Zardes is actually one of my favorite players to watch. I mean, he's a guy who, he's a striker that kind of can be invisible for a large part of the game, but when he's
silky.
Yeah, but when he gets the ball, you're on the edge of your seats, right? You don't know what he can do. He's an exciting player, and I really do root for him.
Yeah, man, it's like he's a good player. Clearly, based on his statistics alone this year, 16 goals?
16 goals, and if I'm not mistaken, I think it's 50 for his MLS career with that goal that he scored this weekend. So he's a guy who can really put numbers up.
Yeah, man. So he was a great signing for Columbus this past year, and he's been doing really well. But that goal for Colorado was awesome. I don't know necessarily if it was the ref's fault, but basically the goalkeeper for Columbus is setting up his wall. The whistle blows. The keeper and the rest of Columbus were kind of waiting for a second whistle. Ref never gave it, and then Gashi on Colorado just hits this looping free kick, and it goes into the back of the net, and everyone's just like, "Wait, what happened?" It was a really awesome, fun little goal, and props to them.
I think even if Columbus were set up in that situation, that goal was going in because it was in such a hard place for a keeper to pick up. And what a bend he got on it, too.
Oh, so yeah.
It really was a nice goal. I mean, it ended up not really meaning anything for them, but
yeah,
it really was a nice goal to see.
So let us know, guys. Should the ref have blown again and called that back, or were they perfectly fine to do that? And then there was a red card for Wynn, which I felt it was a little soft. It was his first. He didn't have a yellow card. It was a straight red. But the ref alleges that he came from behind and tried to kick him directly from behind, which, I guess by letter of the law is a red, but it looked a little soft to me.
Yeah, I mean, seeing it the first time, I wasn't like, gasp, red card offense. I was more just like, okay, foul. But seeing the red card come out, I was a little shocked. But, I mean, up to the ref's decision. Again, letter of the law, sure. But, I mean, to the eye, it didn't look as bad as the ref said it did.
So let us know, guys. Was that a red card, or should that have just been a yellow?
All right, Louie, I think it's time to talk Minnesota-Portland, a game that ended up 3-2 for Minnesota. And all I can say about this game is Quintero. Wow. The whole game, I was like, oh my gosh, this guy is the real deal. He was everywhere for Minnesota.
Dude, Minnesota took forever to sign their first DP, and when they finally signed Darwin Quintero, people were like, okay, great, awesome, we got a guy. What a guy he turned out to be, man. Like you said, he was everywhere this game. He provided 2 assists. Both of the assists for Mario Ibarra's goals were direct contributions from Darwin Quintero. And this guy's been doing it all season long for Minnesota. Unfortunately, the rest of the team doesn't seem to be on that level that he's at, but that first goal that he just diced up everybody and just left it for Mario Ibarra on that left side to put it into the back of the net. My God, man, like Mario Ibarra probably never going to score an easier goal like that in his life.
Yeah, he's, again, one of those guys that changes games, right? And it's sad to see Minnesota in the position they are now because he's a little bit older. I think he's 30 plus years old. Who knows if he'll be able to keep up this same run of form coming next season. But for now, he's one of the most exciting players in the MLS.
Absolutely one of the, like you said, one of the most exciting players in all of the MLS. And, you know, Quintero had the 2 assists to Mario Ibarra, but then he hit the post like twice. On one of them, there was this like side-footed chip that I was like, oh man, he's going to punish this keeper and it's going to be the cherry on top of his game today. But it just hit off the crossbar, came back out. Unfortunately, he didn't get his goal, but Minnesota got the win.
Minnesota fans, let us know how you feel about Quintero. Do you think he'll be able to produce at the same level next year, or is this kind of all you got from him?
And also, if he can, what is missing to better your team overall, to build around Quintero for next season? Because you guys are moving to a new stadium. It's supposed to be an amazing experience. Your fans, you guys look like you had a sellout crowd this weekend. Everybody looks to be in love with Minnesota. What's missing on the field? Despite the win for Minnesota, the goal of the game has to go to Alvis Powell. And not only goal of the game, I think goal of the week should go to Alvis Powell. The ball falls him outside the box, and he just picks it out of the air and sweetly volleys it. I don't even think he could get it more top corner than he did, but it was probably the best goal this man will ever score in his life.
What a thwack, let me tell you. He hit that thing hard. And I'm in between his goal or Gressel's, honestly, for this week. Gressel's, it was just so smooth for me. I really like the silkiness of that goal. But, man, what a hit. Honestly, I'd clip that and show my kids that probably for the rest. Hey, this is what Dad did. Just so they knew.
For sure, man. It's one of those highlight career moments for him. So, hats off to you, sir. Moving along to a game that was actually very interesting for a lot of different reasons. LA Galaxy versus the Seattle Sounders. Seattle Sounders, like we had said a little bit earlier in the episode, at one point were on a 9-game winning streak, but after losing to Philly midweek and then losing again to the Galaxy, it really kind of put a damper on the momentum that Seattle had built. Whereas LA Galaxy, they had been coming off of a 7-game losing streak. So what a game of contrast between these two clubs. And it was very interesting to see what happened.
Yeah, and I think what caught me by surprise is just how poorly Seattle was playing after already losing that game midweek. You would have thought that, especially given their 9-game win streak, they would have bounced back, would have been able to play, but they seem to be lacking across the board.
Yeah, and I don't know if it must have just been a loss of momentum, because they are a good team. We've talked very highly about them. They look really good when they're playing at their best, but it just seems like maybe they ran out of gas. 9 games in a row to win, it's a lot of wins. And so I'm sure it's taken a toll on all the players and all of the staff. So let us know, guys. Was this just a little blip on the radar? Was this just was this coming? Did you guys kind of see this drop coming, or is this a sign of more worrying things entering the playoffs?
This is also a super important match because this puts the Galaxy 3 points behind Seattle. So even with that entire kind of swing and momentum that Seattle had, they're still on the cusp and they potentially could be out of a playoff spot.
Yeah, and that's what's a little bit worrying, right? If after going 9 games on the trot, winning, to lose 2 and losing one of them to your closest rivals for that last spot, it wasn't the best look. So let us know, guys. Do you think Seattle can get it back to winning ways, or is the momentum kind of shifting there? Because even LA, there was some pretty bad news coming out this week. Zlatan Ibrahimovic is not sure of his future, and 18 goals in about 20-ish games for the Galaxy. Zlatan has been absolutely producing, so it's a little weird when he comes out and says that he's not sure of his future. And it's been a troubling time for LA. Siggy Schmid leaves as head coach as well during that 7-game lose streak, and they were able to get a win now, but LA Galaxy fans, how worried are you for the future? I mean, Zlatan reinvigorated your club. It brought life to your club, and it seems like everything's falling apart a little bit. How worried are you for the future? Can you potentially get it together for the playoffs? Let us know.
And in terms of Zlatan, he came into the club saying that he was going to deliver an MLS Cup. If he leaves after this season, LA Galaxy fans, has his season been a bust if he doesn't deliver?
Moving on to the last two games, Revolution Chicago. Honestly, don't have much to say about this. It was a must-win game for the Revs, and yet they dropped points again. Brendan Bye did not look very good defensively. Revs luckily they were able to fight back and get the draw, but overall, I don't know. This is a Chicago team that hasn't been very good all season. They should have been able to get this win if they actually had ambition. I think I've exhausted my opinions on the Revs. I kind of just want to let it go.
Tell us how you really feel, man.
Yeah, I'm just sad with the Revs. I had high hopes and they're disappointing. So, moving along to the last game that we'll cover really quickly. LAFC win 2-0 over San Jose. San Jose, one of the worst teams in the MLS. They finally fired their coach after people have been calling for that for a very long time. Yet, they still lost. So, congrats to Walker Zimmerman on his 2 goals. They were pretty good. Yeah. And
that wraps it up for this episode, guys. As always, be sure to leave your answers to our questions or any comments that you may have in the comment section below. If you like the episode, click that like button to your right. And if you like us, really, really like us, make sure to click the subscribe button. It lets us know that we're doing something right and you'll enjoy watching our stuff.
And since you've gotten this far into the episode, I figured I should tell you, if you guys like what you've been seeing out of Atlanta United over the past 2 years, about how crazy their supporters have been, how all that's been, we have an episode of our podcast that came out this morning where we did an interview with Austin Long, the president of the Terminus Legion supporters group of Atlanta United. These are one of the big supporters group down there in Atlanta, and we talked all things Atlanta soccer with him, so it was a really insightful episode. We'll put the link in the description below. Check that out because you will not want to miss what he has to say about Atlanta United and the support down there.
That's it. Be sure to check us out next week.